Hi everyone, welcome to our 710 ESPN Seattle Game of Thrones panel discussion.
Oh wait, what?
That's what you're here for, right Dave?
Oh, you guys sabotaged me. I've never seen 1 minute of that show. Not one
It works
minute.
just like you planned.
The only reason I ever paid attention to it because I heard Aaron Rodgers had a cameo.
He's
in it.
really mad about it too.
Yeah.
Why?
Stacy and Aaron Rodgers could host a Game of Thrones wrap because
We'll
they're
talk
both
about it
very
later.
heated about it. But actually what we're here for is to talk about Seahawks OTAs. I'm Maura Dooley. This is Dave Wyman. He's on Danny, Dave, and More, and also the Seahawks radio broadcast, of course, and Stacy Rost from 710sports.com and Seattle Sports at Night. All right, guys, we got to see our first look at the rookies and veterans together yesterday. They started OTAs on Monday, but the media was finally allowed to get a glimpse yesterday. What were your very first impressions of what you saw on the field yesterday?
Well, I thought the draft choices really, I thought they worked in really well. And this is something that I've not heard Pete Carroll say before. Mm-hmm. He said that this group is the most ready to go as far as practicing, because a lot of times, and I asked Ben Burkervin this, I said, are you just out there like learning how to practice in the rookie camp? Because, you know, they have different drills and different ways of doing things. And he said, no, it's exactly like we've done at Washington. I think Utah also has like a professional type of practice, the way they run their program. So guys like Cody Barton, Marquise Blair, and Ben Burkervin just fit right in. And that's the first time I've heard Pete talk about how up to speed the rookies are. Usually they come in and they're pretty lost, and there's not a better
Russell
coach.
actually mentioned that as well.
Did he?
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that because, you know, I think these last two drafts are really going to be key going forward. And so that was something I thought was new. That, you know, you don't hear Pete usually talk about that. And that's the problem with rookies is you're thinking so much that you often don't go turn it loose and make plays.
Yeah.
So that was really encouraging to hear. And that's kind of what I saw out there on the field.
Yeah, I think for me, and I know this is always the case this time of year because it's just early and you don't want to push guys that don't need to be pushed yet physically, but there were a couple players kind of nursing injuries, and a few of them are starters that we weren't expecting. So Bradley McDougald, starting strong safety, is recovering from a knee surgery that I don't think we were aware he had. And this is normal, right? Guys have procedures in the offseason. You don't always get updates depending on when they have them. Chris Carson, another guy. Pete Carroll, it sounded like it was maybe a slightly less invasive procedure. Pete Carroll said he had a little work done on his knee, which I know he thought sounded funny.
It just reminded me, I was picturing like a Real Housewife.
Are we talking about actresses here?
Yeah, we're talking
Some
about
work
Chris
done.
Carson who comes back. He's like, no, my knee's fine. We just needed some Botox.
But he was present, and I saw him doing some light sprinting. It doesn't seem like it's a big issue.
Yeah. He's, again, I don't know how far along he is. His sounded maybe the least serious of all of them, but there are a couple guys, Jaron Reed, Nas Jones, Delano Hill, including Bradley McDougald, who are guys that even past next week's mini camp are going to be out. So Carroll said those are guys we're going to see in July. So I think, you know, along with what Dave was saying, he was interested to see some of those younger guys that maybe got a bit more time in there than we would have thought. I noticed Travis Homer, you know, with Chris Carson out, looked good, and I think that's just
He had the guns out. So
Yeah.
he was
He
kind of
did.
showing it off.
My theory is that he's not going to have sleeves until week 15, but we'll see how far it goes.
I love that kid. I thought watching all the highlights on film, watching him, I think he's
Yeah.
going to be a great special team guy, and he's going to be fun to watch. I can never remember his name. I always want to call him Homer Travis,
I mean, you can
or
just
Travis
call him
Homer.
Homer, just last name only.
Yeah. But, you know, some of
T-Rav.
the guys that you mentioned that were out, I think it's important for him to practice. Delano Hill and Nas Jones are two guys that, you know, you don't want to see. They don't want to be on the sidelines. So they've got a lot to prove. And I know we'll get to this, but especially I think Delano Hill is going to be in a battle here coming up in camp.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's always disappointing. I understand it because I was always hurt. But, you know, if you're trying to make the team, you're trying to establish yourself, it's important
tough.
for you to be out there.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's nice to see the guys that are still rehabbing but make the effort to show up.
Yeah, right. Like Bobby Wagner as well. You know, he wanted to be there, and he said that in his press conference that, you know, I'm a leader. I want to
Yeah.
be part of this team. And I think a lot of that comes from Cam Chancellor. You know, Cam even though he had the holdout, I mean, after that he wanted to be out there at all the OTAs and help the young guys. So that was really cool to see. But yeah, at least they're there.
Yeah.
You know, and you sometimes can't help when you get hurt, but a lot of times, I mean, that's one of the biggest things in the NFL, and a lot of times it's luck. It's bad luck. Sometimes it's preparation. You know, and if I see a guy's out of shape, to me that's unforgivable because your whole offseason, it's your job. But, you know, if you're getting injured and, you know, you just happen to get unlucky, that's kind of how
sometimes it's
my
the
career
fallout
went.
from an injury, right? Maybe
Yeah.
if you injure like a right knee, maybe your left hamstring, you start offsetting things, or you have to, in the case of Delano Hill, to like add a bit of context, it sounds like sometimes it could be just when we happen to watch them. So it sounds as though Delano Hill, he, unfortunately for him, suffered his hip injury so late in the season that he wasn't placed on the injured reserve list until January 1st or something like that. So it's only been 5 months for him recovering from a hip fracture. So he lost weight and had to put it back on. So it sounds like he's on an upward trajectory with his recovery, but you know, we just happened to catch him for the first time, you know, in mid-May as opposed to mid-June, where he's probably going to be participating more and having put on a bit more weight back. So that'll definitely be a storyline. The safety battle in general, which we'll, I'm sure, talk about later, is something that factors into for me.
Yeah, we'll get to a couple of those battles, and like you said, some guys that probably need to be out there kind of living up to the expectations, like Delano Hill and Naj Jones. But for right now, looking at some of the injuries like Chris Carson, it's also making an opportunity for a guy like Rashad Penny. He came in, Carroll said he was impressed with his conditioning. He said he's stronger than he was last year. And obviously he's kind of battling. Some people think he could overtake Carson for the number one spot, or they could split pretty evenly. How do you see that running back battle playing out? And then you have the addition of some guys like Travis Homer and Bo Scarborough.
Yeah.
Or just Homer, whatever you want to say.
Whatever his name is.
Whatever.
Davis Homer. He's just Homer. Okay, kind of like Homer Simpson. No, I really like him. And look, they've pulled guys. I mean, Chris Carson was a 7th round draft choice.
Yeah.
And what was Homer? 6th, I think, 7th, something like that. So, yeah, I think Carson, I mean, based on what he did last year, there's just no way you would say he wouldn't be the starter, right? But Rashad Penny was a 1st round draft choice. And sometimes guys don't understand when they come in as a rookie how to take care of their body. I know for me, like losing 5 to 10 pounds you'd be so much faster and quicker and I think healthier. So if he's lost some weight, gotten in better shape, maybe didn't understand that you need to be in, that's like the baseline. Like you start, like, get in shape. That's number one. Then you can start working on, you know, all the things, whether it's cuts, catching the ball, blocking, all that stuff. So yeah, I'd say watch out for Rashad Penny. I mean, I think, and Chris Carson, seeing him stand on the sidelines, there was a couple times in games where against Arizona last year. Now they did have him carry the ball like 33 times in the Dallas game. The next week he wasn't available. The availability, I know it's corny, but they always say that's the most important ability.
Not corny
is
at
availability.
all,
Yeah, I mean, if you're out there, and it gets in coaches' minds. Like
Yeah.
if they see a guy standing on the sidelines and they're like, they've got a game plan and they're like, oh yeah, we don't have that guy, he's hurt again. And again, no fault to the players sometimes, but if you're there and always available and reliable, it sticks in coaches' minds. And you know, if Rashad Penny can be that and Chris Carson can't, then yeah, you might see him overtake that running back position.
Well, and it was part of the reason that they went for him in the first place, is that he hadn't missed any time at San Diego State. And I think, you know, did kind of have his first experience with injury. And Pete Carroll talked about that when he injured his finger and had to have like a minor procedure on his finger. Carroll was like, this is his first time experiencing this. I know it seems minor, but it's new to him.
And that set him back a little bit in training camp
Yeah,
last year.
yeah.
Yes.
So I know that seems like something that all athletes should be familiar with, but everyone has, you know, Dave, you know this better than any of us. Everyone has their own pace at which they kind of adapt to the NFL, and hopefully, especially if you're a first-round pick and there's a lot of pressure, you're able to catch up to that in year two. So I think without Mike Davis to take those kind of second back reps, it's prime time for Penny to step up into that spot and split them with
Yeah, I
Carson.
was really good at coming back from injuries. Got really good at it.
Lots of experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lots of off-season stuff. So yeah, you're right. And for a guy like Penny, I mean, he doesn't really understand what that's about. And I think psychologically, more than anything, I think that's the hardest part. You can get yourself back physically fairly easy if you're dedicated, but yeah, getting back out there and having the confidence that kind of interrupted Penny, kind of interrupted Rasheem Green last year too. He got hurt a little bit in the beginning of the season. He had a really good preseason. So yeah, all those things are just becoming a pro. And unfortunately, getting injured and being able to play through that stuff is it's an important part of it.
Well, mentioning your best ability being your availability, another guy on the running back roster that has had a lot of those issues is CJ Procise.
Yeah.
They're going to be looking for kind of a third guy to get some reps with Mike Davis gone. Do you think Procise can finally work his way in there? Do you think it's going to be one of the newer additions?
I hope so.
McKissick?
You know, I think the fact that he's hung around as long as he has says something about CJ Procise.
Or at least how they see him.
Yeah.
They see
And
his
you've almost
ceiling.
at times heard Carroll's frustration.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you're right. They must like something in him to deal with that
Yeah.
for as long as they have.
Right. So, and I think it's something pretty special. And the times that we've seen, and look, CJ Procise is not, you know, he's not one of these guys that shies away from contact. My favorite play that he had was against the Patriots a couple of years ago when he ran over Patrick Chung. And he could have stepped out of bounds, but he had the ball and they were on the sidelines and he lowered his shoulder and ran him over. I mean, he's a tough
And that's a safety
guy.
that will dole out
Yeah.
some hits.
Yeah. So, and, you know, CJ Procise was a receiver, and so he's got some tough guy in him, but it's just a matter of, you know, the little things like having a hamstring or, you know, little, you know, twisted ankle, I think it was one time. I mean, you have to kind of learn how to play through those things, and, you know, maybe this will be the year that he's able to do that.
Well, let's move into some of those position groups we were talking about where there are going to be some battles. Obviously, at the safety position, we're looking at Delano Hill, Tedrick Thompson, and Bradley McDougald from last year. Now we have the addition of Marquise Blair. Ugo Amadi is going to be battling, I think, for the nickel corner spot. So we've got some other roles in the secondary that are looking to be filled in with new additions too. But I think the cornerback area is more set. What do you think we're trying to fill with the safety position right now?
They're trying to find somebody to step in and own it. Bradley McDougald has done that. I really like it. I like to see him play strong safety because I think he's an upgrade from Cam Chancellor coverage-wise. I think he's better, and he's really good against the run. He can play up in the box and be like a mini linebacker, not so mini linebacker.
And he said that's his preferred position too.
Yeah, so, but, you know, these guys, the safeties, the two guys that are really going to get pushed are Tedrick Thompson and Delano Hill, who unfortunately is out right now. So those two guys needed to step up and really own that position last year, and they didn't really do it. They were up and down. I still think Pete has a lot of faith. He mentioned Delano Hill at the end of the year more than
He did.
anybody, I think.
It flip-flopped from training camp. They were talking about Thompson all through training camp, and then at the end of the year, all of a sudden it was Hill.
Yeah, and I think if you listen to Pete, he's going to talk about the guys he's excited about. So, and then maybe a little bit of it is motivation in case the guy hears it or knows. People tell him that, yeah, Pete's talking about you. But those two guys, and I'm looking at Ugo Amadi. First of all, I think personality matters. And I think if you are an articulate person and you're fired up and you got a sense of humor and he's just incredibly sharp. And, you know, John Schneider pointed out that he won the Lombardi Award. And if you look at, and it's about competitiveness, I don't think it has anything to do with your grades, but it's about leadership, things like that. And if you look at some of the people on that list, like Terrell Suggs and Dominican Sue.
People you've never heard about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a prestigious group.
It is.
So I think that matters. Pete talked about him playing inside in the slot in nickel. And so I expect things from him. And then Marquise Blair is this quiet guy who looks like he's got a lot of nasty in him. So that is going to be a battle because one of those guys, probably at least one, is going to come away without a job.
Yeah.
Or, you know, maybe the rookies get put on the practice squad. But, yeah, that's urgent, that competition right there at safety.
And I think Bradley McDougald's versatility makes it almost more of a battle because they know they can use him at either spot. So it's not about where Bradley McDougald fits in for them. It's about who's the best at the other spot. I think that using Bradley McDougald at strong safety, I would guess the team might even prefer him there, knowing he can play both positions just fine. But it puts pressure on all of the safeties because no matter where you're at, McDougald isn't at a set spot. So it's who's the best where. And with a guy like Blair, he played well with Amadi in rookie camp, and Carroll has said that Amadi will get some looks at nickel, and he was expecting that, but he also said he'll start kind of on the back end with the safety group too, so I wouldn't rule him out in that safety battle just yet.
Yeah, I think what they need back in their defense is the boom back in it.
Yes.
You need a Cam Chancellor. Richard Sherman really was a really good tackler. Earl Thomas would hit. So they need somebody to, and I thought Tedrick Thompson was the most pure hitter. Last year there was a 3rd and 1 in the home game against the Rams where he came up and just killed Todd Gurley. And he's not a big guy.
He knocked a couple guys out of games last year, didn't he?
Yeah, him and Bradley McDougald both in London. When we went out there, remember Bradley McDougald had a kill shot. So, yeah, they need that back. And I know it's not very popular in the NFL. I see today, and we're going to talk about this on our show, that they're trying to get rid of the Oklahoma drill.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. I mean, that's football. I'm sorry, it's not for everyone. So I don't mind.
And then the next 10 minutes of our show turns into Dave just getting
I'm not going to rant. I'm just saying that it's not for everyone. Football is not for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, some people don't like the violence of it, but that's what it's about. So, and that's what I think they need back. And I'm not saying that they need cheap shots or anything like that, but they need somebody who's going to step up and be the Cam Chancellor.
I agree. Is there any concern? Because I do think all of this kind of relies on Bradley McDougald being there and being the guy that can play either around these young guys. Is there any concern that knee's still nagging him right now?
It was, yeah.
I would say so. Would you?
You
I mean,
would
it's
say so?
always.
I mean, it was. I'm guessing
concern.
that it was the chronic kind of. He had like a patellar tendonitis. They didn't clarify what the surgery was, but if it was on to in any way try to repair that, then I'm guessing it's just something that they tried to nip a long-term problem in the bud, but he was dealing with this all year.
Yeah.
So I think it is a little bit.
They probably cleaned it up,
Yeah.
something like that. So, and they're just being cautious. He doesn't really have that much to prove.
Yeah.
And I think Bradley,
No, I just think they need him desperately. If he was for some reason hurt, that kind of.
Yeah, when the season starts.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll say that Bradley McDougald.
They're building around him.
Yeah, I'll say given the very limited amount of information we have on all these guys, Bradley McDougald as an injured starter is concerning, but on the full list of injuries, his isn't near the top of what I worry is a longer term issue. I'm looking more at a Ziggy Ansah. How long will that keep him out? McDougald's is concerning, but again, I think the fact that I am just assuming that it's that same issue he dealt with all year is just one of those things where there are, unfortunately, some athletes that just kind of have 1 or 2 chronic issues throughout their career, and they just learn to play through it. Yeah.
And he did for most of the season.
Mm-hmm.
On a side note, we're going to move into linebackers, but I heard that one of the people pushing for that getting rid of Oklahoma drill was former linebacker Mike Singletary. Do you feel betrayed?
A little bit.
Well,
Dave's
it's
gonna write a
easy.
strongly
It's
worded
easy for
letter.
Mike to say because he could hit. You have to learn how to hit. I mean, it's something that it's a skill, and how to put your body in the right place and how to make the most effective contact. And yeah, I mean, I think Mike Singletary is saying that because it wasn't a problem for him, but a lot of guys need to practice that. So, but we'll get away from that rant. But I don't want linebackers that don't want Oklahoma drills. And again, Mike Singletary, when he was at Baylor in college, that was back before the internet, all you would hear about is that that guy made every play.
I've seen highlights, yeah.
He would have 30 tackles a game. So, it was easy for him. But, a lot of the older veteran guys will say, we don't need to pound on each other during practice. But for the young guys, you need that.
Yeah.
So, and in high school football, they're saying in New Jersey, they're going to have 15 minutes of full contact a week. You're going to get guys hurt because you need to learn how to hit. The very first tackle I ever made when I first put my pads on when I was 14, I put my head down the rams that hit, and I ended up in the hospital. I hurt my neck and I couldn't breathe and everything. And I mean, you have to learn how to hit and how to put your body in the right position, and you can only do that by practicing. And practicing means that sometimes you have to do the Oklahoma drill.
So there's actually a safety element to it of
I believe
you learn
so.
what not to do.
Yeah,
it's a thin
that's
line to
exactly
walk, for sure.
well put. Yeah.
So let's move into the linebacker position. It's pretty crowded. So we have Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright, of course. And then returning, you have hopefully Michael Kendricks. It seems like his legal issues are most likely going to be worked out. Yeah, he's been practicing. Austin Calitro, Shaquem Griffin, and then you have the additions of Cody Barton and Ben Burkervin. I mean, someone's going to be left on the outside looking in.
Yeah, did you mention Barkevius? Mingo
Marquise
also.
Mingo as well, yes.
Yeah, and he can move around, and he was
Special
probably
teams.
he's probably the best special team player
Yeah,
last year.
yeah.
Yeah. Maybe him or Akeem King, but yeah, it's going to be crowded. There's going to be an odd man out. I know that they're thinking about moving Shaquem off the edge, and that's how he played at Central Florida. The year he was Player of the Year, I think he had like 8 or 9 sacks. So maybe he can contribute that way. He didn't look comfortable on the second level, playing with Bobby and KJ in that position, but you always take your biggest jump from first year to second year. So maybe the game will slow down for him. But I hear really good things about Burke-Curvin and Barton.
I've heard great things about Barton.
Yeah, and Barton, if you watch him at Utah, he played all over the place. He's one of those guys you have to have a dot on because, you know, he was outside, he was inside, he was rushing the quarterback. I mean, he did pretty much everything. And from what I understand, his communication skills, same thing with Burke-Curvin, Marquise Blair, that's the thing that Pete was talking about that I referenced earlier, that they look like they know how to play football. They understand the game. They have a high football IQ. So even though they're rookies and they're coming in learning a new defense, these guys get it already.
And I think that's huge because I think you could see with the core group they had together for so long, KJ and Bobby and Sherman and Thomas and Chancellor, you could just see them do a motion to each other, and everyone knew.
Yeah, you played together
what
for
was-
6, 7, 8 years.
They'd gotten to the point where they didn't really even need to communicate much before a play was snapped, and that's not the case anymore. You've got a couple of the leaders there still, but especially with Clark gone now as well, I think it's probably more important for them to get rookies in that are a little more ready to go and ready to plug in.
Yeah, there's something special about playing together with your teammates. And in '92, when we were terrible, we were 2-14, but we had this amazing defense. And I just remember being in those kinds of communication things where you just say one word or you give them a look, and everybody knew each other and how to play off one another. And I knew sometimes, you know, Cortez Kennedy was going to take a chance and do that, and I would cover for him. So that stuff is invaluable. And to get it out of rookies is really rare. So that's why I brought that up first and foremost, because for Pete to mention that, that says a lot. I mean, that's Pete's defense. Pete understands that defense more than anybody. And maybe Ken Norton is right up there too, but you know, he knows what he wants out of those guys. And for those guys to come in and understand that, you can see why that would really impress Pete Carroll.
Shaquem was doing a little bit of work off the edge yesterday. Did you already think that he looked more comfortable at practice?
Yeah, I think he's better not being in space. You know, I mean, if you get on the edge and sick him, go hit the quarterback, I think it's more straightforward for him, and maybe that'll give his confidence. He played pretty well in special teams, and that's always a great training grounds for players as far as taking angles and playing in open space and things like that. But yeah, I think that's based on what I saw last year, and it can always change. That's probably his best bet coming
for
off the
special
edge.
teams. Oh, coming off the edge.
Coming off the edge and special teams, yeah.
I mean, they're going to need some help there. You mentioned Cody Barton can kind of play everything, and they seem to like that defensive end linebacker hybrid here. Do you think he can do a little bit of that for them?
It looks like it, and that's the thing, you know, you want versatility, and that's what they've always had. Like they kind of have it with McDougald explained to us last year that he would say, you play strong and I'll play weak or free, and that way we don't have to switch sides. And then, you know, you get caught up trying to get the right personnel on the field sometimes, and sometimes you don't want to mismatch. So the more versatile players you have, the better. So, and that's what they have with Bobby and KJ. Those guys can cover. They can cover Jimmy Graham or Darren Sproles or whatever. And I always reference that game, the Monday night game in 2013, where everybody was like, oh, how are they going to cover him? They didn't do any special substitutions. Just Bobby covered him, KJ covered him. So that's what they want. They want guys so that if you get stuck in a personnel mismatch, you have a guy like Cody Barton who can cover a tight end, a receiver, drop into pass, do whatever you want.
And then you save yourself some big depth issues too when you've got Cody Barton, who's played both inside and outside linebacker.
You can keep one less guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe keep another offensive lineman or another receiver. So yeah, it's a good point. It's for the roster at the end of when they cut down. The more versatile guys you have, the better.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we got to hear from the star linebacker himself yesterday, Bobby Wagner. Some news that probably is a little hard to take. He definitely wants to break C.J. Mosley's contract of $17 million a year. He was asked whether he had his eye on that, and he said that, well, that is the market, and, quote, it is the plan to break it. Do you think there's going to be any issues in getting Bobby Wagner that contract?
Yeah, I do. I mean, look, I love Bobby. He can do no wrong. I think he's a great man, a great leader, everything. I don't think it's dumb that he's doing it. I just think it's foolish. And I think that that's not the market, because the guy who gave C.J. Mosley that contract got fired. And so,
McKagan.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I really think that, I always had an agent. He always got me more money than I thought I would get. So, and that's not what you do for a living. And so, I think you hire an agent who has a better perspective and hire a good one. But I just hope it works out, because Bobby is just invaluable to this defense.
Well, I think how invaluable he is what he has working in his favor for that. There's very few players, I think, who could really, really effectively represent themselves, even making mistakes along the way. And it helps to be the very best at your position in the league. Because no matter what, the team still knows what you're worth. So I don't know if he'll get the Mosley numbers. It's not a surprise at all that he's going for that, right? He's a better linebacker than C.J. Mosley. And the trend for any big player in any position is that you want the best deal on the market. That's exactly what Russell Wilson got. That's what a lot of these guys go for, and it makes sense. I think that what's unique with Bobby Wagner is that it's the first player to be representing himself in this situation where he's not coming off an injury, he's not coming off a down year. And so I feel like it's because of that, and because of the few number of true lock-it-in starters that they have, that I just kind of assume it'll get done. Both he and Carroll sounded a bit optimistic yesterday, but it's certainly going to be, this isn't something I expect to get done tomorrow. I think this is going to be going on for a while, and this might be more of a deal that they try to figure out a way to make it work with their cap space. So maybe he doesn't get $17.5 or $18 million a year, but maybe you get some more guarantees. Maybe there's something else they can do. I'm sure that I know that Mosley's deal is $5 million more than like the next highest deal, and really kind of broke that market, but it still affects it. And so it's still going to be higher than Quan Alexander's. It's still going to be similar no matter what.
No, I think so too. I think that the Jets really messed everything up for
They
everyone.
did.
But yeah, it's going to be tough. I think that maybe they can upload some stuff towards the front too, because I think with his age, the problem is going to be that getting a 3 or 4 year deal done at that price is going to be tough as well.
That's fair.
All right, one last thing before we get out of here, guys. Any interest in Gerald McCoy? I mean, I think there's interest, but
I have
I
no
guess
interest
the
in Pro
question is
Bowlers.
more, what would you be willing to pay for him when you have to pay Bobby and Jaren Reed
That's
too?
fair.
It's all about how expensive he is.
Yep.
So, yeah.
$6 million? $7 million?
Yeah.
Would he even sign for $6 million?
Yeah, that's the
There was
question.
some
Yeah.
speculation, I think we're looking at more like 9, 10.
I think, and Maura, actually, you brought this up, that if they manage to extend Wagner and that extension in 2019 hits a little bit higher than you thought it would, it just becomes impossible to add someone like McCoy.
Sorry, guys. I got to go.
All right, you're not staying for the Game of Thrones recap?
I'm supposed to
Well,
be
we
on
planned
Dory's
this all
show
for
at
you.
1:30.
All right.
Yeah, so.
All right, thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.